Oh, there we go. There must be a technique to this that I just don't know. Right, that's quite tight. So I'm now going to switch the heater on. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to switch the heater on the main switching box. Oh, the control panel's on, that's a good start. Auto term it says. Now I don't know whether it's supposed to come on straight away or whether... Okay, it's 6 degrees, we have 14.7 volts on the battery. I believe if I press the button on the right, it goes into heating mode. And it does some sort of start-up process, which may take a couple of minutes. However, I'm not hearing anything, but it could be firing up its glow plug. Oh! Okay, well it's making noises. I don't know if you heard that, but it went whoosh. It's gently whirring. Control panel's lit up red. Let's go and see what the fuel system is doing. I don't think the fuel system is doing anything. I can see air bubbles in that fuel pipe, and they're just sitting there, and it's not ticking. Now there is, as I say, something like a 2-minute startup procedure. So it may take a while till it does anything. Excitement! It was making a ticking noise. Here we go, ticking noise. I don't know if you can hear that, but it turns out already mounting the pump on the side of this is a terrible idea, as it's simply acting as a giant amplifier for the ticking. But hey, the pump is pumping. And the pace of the pumping is speeding up, and I can hear the fan whirring up on the heater. Right, well the pump is clearly working anyway, isn't it? Shall we assume that it's now pumped through any air bubbles, in which case it is supposed to go like that, at an angle. There is a precise angle you're supposed to set it at, but for the moment we'll leave it like that. Oh look, you can actually see the pump, you can see that vibrating every time it pulses. Well, the display has switched itself off, which I assume is just a standard kind of thing. Let's prod it, see what it says. It says it's in heating mode. Battery voltage down at 12.7, that's not surprising because it will be drawing. Now the heater was whirring, and now it seems to have stopped whirring. One thing I forgot to mention, by the way, you'll notice where this metal plate is, and where I've screwed it through to the wood, I've actually put a strip of the exhaust wrap as a kind of high temperature washer between the metal plate and the wood. So hopefully that will give it some extra insulation. That's in, that's out. Not doing much, but it wasn't showing any fault code, so I guess we'll just have to see how this goes. Of course, it is going to take a while till it gets any fuel. Can't really see if there's fuel. Oh, I can actually there. I can see there's fuel, and there's a lot of air bubbles, but there is actually fuel. So the pump needs to do a bit more pumping to get rid of that air. There is a mix of fuel and air in there. I can see it moving. Also, there is air coming out of here. It's cold air, but it is blowing. So there's movement. Alrighty, well I was all set to tell you I could feel some warmth coming out of the exhaust, but look, you can actually see steam blowing out the exhaust. And that is very mildly warm, tepid at best, but it's clearly just done an initial burn. So combustion is happening. It did say there would be smoke on startup. I'll take that as a good sign. However, a less than good sign is fault 13. Fault 13. The heater does not start. 2 automatic start attempts failed. Cause: no fuel in the tank. Fuel grade does not match the operating conditions. insufficient supply of fuel. I suspect it's going to be insufficient supply because the pipe was initially empty, so it needed to do a fair amount of pumping before it got any. Clogged exhaust duct or combustion air intake, that's not true. Insufficient preheating of the glow plug, faulty unit. Well, it shouldn't be, it's brand new. The impeller touches the fan shroud in the blower. That shouldn't be doing that. And the glow plug is clogged. Well, it shouldn't be any of those. I'm going to assume that is a low fuel scenario because of there being initially no fuel in the pipe. So what we'll do is when it's switched itself off is I'll switch it on again. Right, I've told it to start up again, and since there is now some fuel in the pipe, perhaps it will be more inclined to do a proper start-up. Right, the pump has started clicking again. Very gently. Can I see any air bubbles? None, obviously. Oh, and I can actually see some air bubbles leading from the pump. Apparently the pump, the action of the pump causes cavitation, which puts air bubbles into the fuel. I don't know how that works exactly. Air can't just magically appear out of nowhere, but apparently it does. Let us peer intently at the exhaust pipe. Yep, there's mildly warm air coming out of that. I'd say it's hotter than last time, actually. Oh, and there we go, some smoke coming out. Not as much as last time, but smoke is blowing. Excitingly, I'm getting hot air out of the vent. It was simply blowing cold air last time. This is actually, I mean, it's tepid, but it's not natural air temperature. That is warmed air. So something is going on. There is some combustion going on. Out of interest, I wonder how hot that exhaust pipe is. I'm going to do what you shouldn't do and put my hand on it very gently. Oh, you can't even feel any warmth on it really. At the moment, too soon. Too soon. But okay. Well, it's picked the fan speed up and it is blowing hot air. What does the display say? The display is just showing a normal heating. I've put the back on there, and I'm now going to listen for the ticking of the pump. Yes, I can hear it, but it's actually quite quiet. What I'm going to do is shut the back doors of the van, get in, and see what it's like as if I were actually in the van. The exhaust is blowing clear and hot. Still not so hot that I can't touch it. Oh, okay, no, that is all right. Yeah, that's getting toastier. I might run the carbon monoxide meter on that out of interest. Haven't tried that yet. The meter always seems to do this countdown. I think it's like a 2-minute self-calibration when you switch it on. I don't think that's parts per million, that is seconds. Starts at 120, and I think it's then ready for use when it gets down to 0. So I'm going to stand out here in the fresh air while it calibrates with fresh air, and then we'll take it inside and we'll also stick it on the exhaust. You know, that is actually quite quiet. I mean, there's a whooshing noise, and actually I can see some smoke escaping from before the exhaust pipe, but they did say there might well be smokiness from the joint. It's the jointing paste that I've used on the joints. That will burn off and smoke when it starts up. That should stop after a while. It shouldn't be a sign of leaking exhaust, hopefully. It's just burning off the high temperature exhaust paste. This thing is now ready. It's reading 0 carbon monoxide outside, as you'd hope. It's saying it's 11 degrees Celsius out here. Let's stick it on the exhaust pipe. Okay, there is carbon monoxide coming off the exhaust pipe. which you might expect, although carbon monoxide is a sign of incomplete combustion. But again, this is its first run, so I'm not entirely surprised. Let's put it here where I was just seeing smoke coming off. Right, so the other side of the muffler, where I've just seen some smoke coming off, it's at pretty much 0. And out the back of the exhaust pipe, yeah, okay. Let's just see if we have any in the van. Let's let that go back to 0 again. Let's hold it down near underneath where the exhaust connects. Okay, well that's about 3 inches away from where the exhaust pipe comes out the bottom of the heater. And we've clearly seen that the meter works when it detects stuff. Let's stick it down here somewhere. I can't see it there. That's just near the exhaust pipe. It would be an odd place for there to be any detection there, because it's literally just a length of pipe at that point. You're more likely to get it detecting, I can see it says 0 actually. You're more likely to get it detecting where the joints are. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I will continue checking that. What about the hot? Yes, it's blowing hot out of here. I think that needs turning around actually, it's facing a funny way. However, there's hot air coming out of there, that's good. And all in all, actually, you know, that's not that loud. Bearing in mind, I've got all the gubbins open here. Normally there'd be a worktop on top of here. It's pretty quiet. I've also, incidentally, still got that was my propane alarm, but it's also a carbon monoxide detector as well. I think it does several different types of gases. Anyway, that is plugged in and switched on, so that would also go off at a frightening loudness if it detected carbon monoxide. The other one is still saying 0, that is good. The control is, well, it's saying it's got up to 14 in here, and it seems to be happy. Okay. It wants me to run it on high for a couple of hours, so I'll try and turn the temperature up so it just keeps going. Right, I've told it to go to 29 degrees Celsius, and it's going to run for the next 4 hours 48 minutes. It seems to have a 5-hour default timer on it. I'll have to see if I can turn that down. We don't want it running for 5 hours. But they do say to run it for 2 on max. So I'm presuming, having told it to go to 29 and it's only 14, that is max. Well, you can possibly hear it whirring away. And again, it would normally be quieter if this worktop actually had, well, the rest of the worktop on it. It's not too loud as a blower, and I cannot hear the pump ticking at all. So kudos to Autoterm. They're right, their current pump is very quiet. There's a very gentle thump, 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 which I think is the pump, but it's not a ticking noise, it's just a very bassy thump, thump, thump in the background. And you have to squint your ears to hear it. The noisiest thing by far is the fan. But anyway, it's all working, so I'm going to leave it running for its required 2 hours and possibly get on with cutting the new worktop while it does that. In terms of the exhaust pipe, it is hot. I can touch it, but I wouldn't want to leave my hand on it for more than about half a second. So it is hot, but it's not excruciatingly so, and it doesn't seem hotter than the old one was. However, we'll carry on and keep checking on it. I'm just curious, with it having run now for half an hour or so, 40 minutes, as to how hot the woodwork is getting. And this wood is stone cold, absolutely stone cold. Even at the back here, it is stone cold. The metal plate that the heater is on is hot enough that I don't particularly want to touch it for more than more than just dabbing my finger on it. But the little strip of insulation I put underneath the metal plate is stone cold, and the wood cold. Absolutely no temperature issue on that. I mean, I suppose you might just say that there it is tepid. You can feel that is fractionally warmer than the wood here, but you would never describe that as hot. And if I run my hand underneath, and I'm running them round the edge of the giant hole in the woodwork where this heater sits, I'd say it's mildly warm just on the edge there. Nearest where the exhaust pipe is, let's not burn myself doing this, it's cold. Well, not cold, tepid. And what about across the front here? Now, across the front, the nearer bit here, this is where the air inlet is, and that's plastic pipe anyway. So they must design that to be... It always alarms me how close the air inlet and exhaust are on these things. I mean, they're literally about a centimetre away from each other. And the air inlet is only plastic pipe, so they cannot be expecting it to get so hot, otherwise it would melt the inlet pipe. Right, that is fine. The exhaust pipe, again, I can touch it. I'm literally touching it and taking my fingers straight off because it's clearly very, very hot. But it's not the case that you put your finger on it and your skin melts off, although you would not want to put your fingers on for more than literally just to touch it. Now, it is actually touching that bit of wood over there, which I didn't anticipate it doing. In fact, why is it touching that bit of wood? It must have shifted when I installed it, as that was supposed to be in free space. However, if I put my hands on that bit of wood that the hot exhaust pipe is touching, it is stone cold. Absolutely, even though the exhaust pipe is actually touching the woodwork at that point, I did line the woodwork with silver foil to reflect heat. And it seems to be doing its job, because that wood is cold. The exhaust pipe is actually touching it at one point, and yet the wood is cold. I'll still see if I can move that away slightly once this is all movable, cool to the touch. But given that the exhaust pipe is literally touching the wood there, I'm very surprised how not hot that wood is. And that must be down to a combination of the exhaust wrap and the silver foil I've put on the wood. Ha! Yep, that is a hot exhaust. It can safely be said the exhaust is hot.